In the hushed silence of the medieval world at a time when nights lasted a little longer, and the wind crept between wooden beams like a wandering spirit, there existed an event so quietly documented, so strangely described, that historians still struggle to decide whether it belongs to the realm of fact or myth. Tonight, in this calm whisper meant to guide you gently into sleep, we drift back to that strange year, to a single day when every mirror in a forgotten corner of Europe stopped behaving as mirrors. A day when reflections refused to obey the people who stood before them. A day when glass remembered things humans have forgotten. The earliest surviving record comes from a small monastery tucked between low hills and a slow-moving river. Its chronicler, Brother Anselm, was known for being methodical and imaginative, and careful in every line. He wrote traits that make his testimony all the more unsettling. He begins his account not with drama, but with stillness. On the morning of St. Radigan's feast, the brothers felt an ill wind, though the air itself did not move. Even before the mirrors changed, people sensed something was quietly shifting underneath the surface of the day, like a chord being plucked somewhere far away, its vibration passing through stone, water, and bone. In the monastery, the mirrors were small polished pieces of metal, more reflective than accurate. They hung near washing basins. They were used by traveling nobility who occasionally stayed overnight. They were tools, not luxuries. But on that morning, when a young novice named Peter bent over the basin and lifted his face to the mirror, he dropped the cloth he held. It fell to the ground without a sound, because the face staring back at him was not his. What he saw was older, lined with years he had not yet lived. The eyes were his, yes, but tired. The hair thinner. The cheekbones sharper. And the expression filled with a quiet sorrow he did not understand. Peter did not shout. In the monastery, shouts were rare. Instead, he whispered a prayer and stepped back. When he looked again, just a heartbeat later, the reflection remained the same. At first he believed he was ill, or perhaps fasting had weakened him. But he wasn't alone. Moments later, another brother entered, carrying a bucket of cold water. When he glanced into the same mirror, he saw not himself, but a child he had never met, a girl, about 7 years old, looking back with curious eyes. He dropped the bucket. This time, the splash echoed through the hall. Word traveled quietly, but quickly. Soon a handful of monks gathered around the mirror, each seeing something different, not distorted, not monstrous, just not themselves. Brother Anselm's report states that the reflections fell into 3 categories. Some people saw strangers' faces belonging to no one they recognized. Others saw deceased relatives, often appearing healthier than they had in life. But the most disturbing reflections were those that showed alternate versions of the person, looking older, younger, or subtly different, as though belonging to a life lived in another direction. The phenomenon did not stay within the monastery walls. Outside, in the surrounding villages, similar events unfolded. A woman baking bread saw the reflection of her mother, dead 10 years, smiling faintly from the pan's polished surface. A blacksmith glimpsed a bearded man he swore he had never seen before, staring out from the cold metal of a horse's bit. Children, fascinated rather than frightened, claimed the mirrors were dreaming. What made the event so striking was its consistency. It was not limited to one object or one household. Every reflective surface, water, polished utensils, fragments of glass refused to show the viewer's true face. The region was not large, but it held several hundred people. And by midday, the phenomenon affected all of them. Historians often dismiss such uniform stories as local hysteria or exaggeration, but they cannot easily explain the breadth of the surviving accounts. The writings come from different villages, different social ranks, different languages. They contain discrepancies, yes, but they all describe the same impossible core: reflections gone astray. The bishop of the nearest diocese, upon hearing the rumors, sent a clerics to investigate. Their report survives in damaged form, its edges burned, but the main passage remains readable. None who looked upon themselves beheld their own countenance. Even the still water of the well rejected the likeness of the one who peered within it. What truly terrified people was the possibility that their souls had somehow slipped away. In that era, one's reflection was not merely an image, it was a sign of selfhood, a symbol of divine order. A mirror that did not obey expectations felt alive. Yet the strangest part of Anselm's chronicle comes later that afternoon. He writes that as the sun began to descend, a trembling came over the mirrors, not a physical vibration, but a soft shimmer, like warm air rising off stone. And then, for a brief moment, all reflections synchronized. For a single heartbeat, every person who looked into a reflective surface saw the same face. It was not old or young, male or female. It did not belong to any known person. The chronicler describes it as calm, expressionless, and utterly unfamiliar. Then it vanished. Immediately after this shared image appeared, the phenomenon ended. Mirrors returned to normal as though waking from a dream. People saw themselves again. The world resumed its ordinary stillness. Nobody at the time could explain it. And over the centuries, theories emerged, each stranger than the last. Some priests claimed it was a divine warning, a reminder that humans often fail to see themselves truly. Others believed it was a mass enchantment, perhaps caused by a wandering sorcerer or a cursed relic passing through the region. Folklorists suggested it was a metaphor that later chroniclers took to literally. Modern historians, when asked, roll their eyes and point to simpler explanations: misremembered stories, psychological contagion, optical illusions, or distortions in poorly made mirrors. But there remains one detail none of the skeptics can explain. In the ruins of the old monastery long collapsed, stones have buried and moss archaeologists found a fragment of polished metal that once served as a mirror. And on its reverse side, scratched faintly into the surface, were 3 short lines in Latin. For one day, we saw ourselves as others see us. For one moment, we saw what we fear. And then the day passed. No one knows who carved those words or why. But perhaps the real mystery isn't the faces people saw. Maybe the true unease lies in the fact that for a brief moment an entire region glimpsed something outside the normal boundaries of perception. A reminder that mirrors, simple as they seem, are windows into a place where our understanding of reality grows thin. As night descended on that medieval world, people did not sleep easily. Some covered their mirrors with cloth. Others turned them face down. A few smashed them to pieces and buried them in the earth. Yet life slowly returned to normal. Days passed. Seasons changed. And the strange phenomenon faded into memory. But even now, occasionally, a historian flipping through old manuscripts will pause at the mention of that day. They will read of the synchronized face that appeared in every reflection. They will frown, puzzled. And they will wonder, just for a moment, whether mirrors truly show only what stands before them, or whether, on rare days, they remember other possibilities. Tonight, as you rest, as your breath softens, and your thoughts drift like dust settling in an old library, imagine the world growing quiet around you. Imagine the gentle glow of candlelight. Imagine a mirror in a still medieval room, waiting patiently in the corner. Most nights, it reflects only what stands before it. But on that strange day, long ago, it chose something different. And now, as sleep begins to wrap around you like a soft blanket, let your mind wander gently, not into fear, but into curiosity, into wonder, into the soft twilight between history and dream. For in that quiet space, just before sleep, reflections sometimes shift just a little. Not enough to frighten, only enough to remind you that the world still holds mysteries. Rest now. Let the story fade into a calm whisper. Let the night carry you into peaceful dreams. The mirrors are quiet again. And so soon will you.